Good morning, dear students. Today we are going to talk about modal verbs for advice and suggestion. Let's start. Whatever you call them, modals, modal verbs, auxiliaries, auxiliary verbs, etc., modals are one of the most difficult grammar points for a student to grasp. There are many categories of modals in English, such as possibility, ability, advice, and necessity. And within each category, we have many modals to choose from. The pattern for modals in English is subject plus modal plus base verb. A base verb is an infinitive verb without to. Point out that base verbs never have any endings, no s, ed, ing, etc. So you don't have to worry about subject-verb agreement. You should never use to after a modal, unless it's a part of the modal expression. You must take in count that for a modal expression that includes to, such as ought to, think of to as part of the modal expression and not as part of an infinitive verb. For example, ought to plus base verb like you ought to take the exam. Not ought plus infinitive verb like you ought take the exam. It's easier to remember never use an infinitive verb with a modal, but you'll have to remember that some modal expressions include to. Next, it's always helpful when you can visualize where the modals belong in relation to one another when giving a suggestion. For example, modal had better expresses a stronger suggestion than ought to and should. As we saw in the previous explanation, common modals of advice in English are should, ought to, and had better. Let's check the differences in meaning and usage. Should. Using the modal of advice should is the most common way to suggest something to someone in English. The pattern is subject plus should plus base verb. For example, you should practice more. The negative form should not often gets contracted to shouldn't. For example, you shouldn't smoke. Let's see another example. You should tell your boss about the report. They should start getting ready to go because the bus leaves at 4. She shouldn't smoke outside because people are eating on the patio nearby. Now we'll see some examples in affirmative and negative sentences using the modal verb should. Affirmative. I should give up smoking. You should take it easy. He should work faster. She should go to bed early. It should bark less. We should be early. You should take your umbrellas. They should tell her the truth. In negative, I shouldn't smoke. You shouldn't work so much. He shouldn't get angry. She shouldn't take it easy. It shouldn't bite people. We shouldn't do it now. You shouldn't come late. They shouldn't accept that job. To form yes-no question using the modal verb should, you can invert the subject and should. For example, should I give up smoking? Yes, you should. No, you shouldn't. Should you take it easy? Yes, I should. No, I shouldn't. Should he work faster? Yes, he should. No, he shouldn't. Should she go to bed early? Yes, she should. No, she shouldn't. Should it bark more? Yes, it should. No, it shouldn't. Should we be early? Yes, you should. No, you shouldn't. Should you take your umbrellas? Yes, we should. No, we shouldn't. Should they tell her the truth? Yes, they should. No, they shouldn't. Now, to form a WH question using the modal verb should, you can put the WH question word before should. For example, what time should they leave for work? They should leave for work before 8 o'clock. Who should she call? She should call her manager. Where should I park my car? You should park your car in the street. What should I use to take it off? You should use a wrench to take it off. How much should I tip the waitress? You should tip the waitress 20% of the subtotal. Where should we go to eat? We should go to a place that serves Thai food. Why should a person go to college? A person should go to college in order to increase his knowledge of the world. Which car should they buy? They should buy a car that gets good gas mileage. When should we leave? We should leave early. O2. O2 is a model expression that sounds a bit stuffy these days. Though you may occasionally see it in textbooks or in writing, you should avoid using O2 plus base verb because it's pretty old-fashioned. Some people would argue that O2 is a bit stronger of a suggestion than should, but others argue that the difference isn't important, especially since it's not commonly used nowadays. In the spoken English, O2 is usually shortened to OTHA, and the negative expression O not to is even less common and best avoided altogether. For instance, you ought to behave a lot better. You ought not to plead healthy. Let's see another example. You ought to show your report card to your parents. Now we'll see some examples in affirmative using the modal verb ought to. I ought to eat less candies. You ought to have helped him. He ought to read more books. She ought to live peacefully. It ought to go outside more to enjoy nature. We ought to be kinder to each other. You ought to have been by her side. They ought to have listened to me. Although negative sentences are not usually used in the negative form, here we have some examples. I ought not to steal. You ought not to commit injustices. He ought not to fall asleep in class. She ought not to have regretted traveling the world. The cake ought not to be ready in 20 minutes. We ought not to be rude. You ought not to say that. They ought not to stay silent before that injustice. Ought not to can be contracted like oughtn't. Questions beginning with ought to are rare. It is not common in question form. It is more usual to begin with do you think? For example, do you think I ought to intervene? Yes, I think you ought to. Do you think he ought to make that sacrifice? No, I don't think he ought to. Do you think she ought to do it herself? Yes, I think she ought to. Does he think we ought to build a better future? Yes, he thinks you ought to. Does she think they ought to study more for the test? No, she doesn't think they ought to. Had better. Use had better plus base verb to make a stronger suggestion than should. This model of advice is used when someone thinks the other person really should follow that suggestion, implying that there will be more serious consequences if the advice isn't taken. Had better is a modal expression that is often contracted to apostrophe "the" better. The negative form, had better not, is also often contracted to apostrophe "the" better not. For instance, you had better buy the tickets now. I'd better go or my parents will tell me off. Check these other examples. We had better let someone know about the problem. He'd better study for the test because he's failing the class. I'd better not eat another cookie because it will ruin my dinner. Now we'll see some examples in affirmative using the modal verb had better. I had better talk to him. You had better love her. He had better be serious about this. She had better have a solution ready. It had better work. We had better bring our umbrellas. You had better bring cash. They had better ignore him this time. Although negative sentences are not usually used in the negative form, here we have some examples. I had better not leave my bag there. You had better not go now. He had better not eat so much. She had better not tell her the truth. It had better not come tonight. We had better not miss the start of the Super Bowl. You had better not call her right now. They had better not get back to work today. In questions, it is much more common to use it with a yes-no construction. It is rare and a word to use it in WH questions. Questions with had better are constructed with the subject in the middle of the phrase, like, had we better bring cash? Hadn't we better practice more? What had we better do? How had we better sing? When had we better carry this out? They are not common. You must use what do we have to do or what should we do instead. Remember, modals of advice are a type of modal verbs used mainly to give or ask for advice and suggestion. These modal verbs are should, ought to, and had better. Should refers to subjective opinions. In affirmative, subject plus should plus infinitive. For example, he should study more. In negative, subject plus shouldn't plus infinitive. For example, you shouldn't be angry today. In interrogative, should plus subject plus infinitive. For example, should I go to the cinema with my friends? Ought to refers to objective opinions. In affirmative, subject plus ought to plus infinitive. For example, we ought to go out tonight. In negative, subject plus ought not to plus infinitive. For example, you ought not to call him. Had better refers to advice when you think there will be negative consequences. In affirmative, subject plus had or better plus infinitive. For example, we'd better find a flat soon. In negative, subject plus had or better not plus infinitive. For example, you'd better not touch that. Thank you so much for your attention to this presentation. Okay, now we know more or less the difference between the use of these modal verbs. We are going to put them in practice, solving our Kahoot game. Okay, the pin for our game is 9742036, or scan the QR code, please. Okay, let's start with our Kahoot. Okay, for this Kahoot, Carla Cruz is on the first place, Dianette is on the second place, and Angel is on the third place. Congrats, all of you. Okay, as you can see, we check some modal verbs for a specific situation. I don't know if you have any question, doubt, or comment. No comments? Ok.
No.
No se les olvide, por favor, si aún no lo han subido, todavía tenemos oportunidad de que suban la actividad integradora de la unidad 1 y el portafolio de evidencias. Por favor, se los encargo. See you next Saturday. Thank you so much. Bye, bye.